Hello and welcome to an Infinity the Game battle report. Today I'm playing Neoterran Capitaline Army versus Haqqislam, and the scenario is Decapitation. Now, as we jump into the Neo-Terran list, firstly, big thanks to channel supporter Anthony P, who put in the request for this battle report. Anthony asks two questions. Firstly, that he just got a bunch of Neo-Terran models, and would I mind doing a Neo-Terran battle report with what I would consider to be a standard list, which this is. And then secondly, although it doesn't pertain to the request, he's curious as to why I didn't like or perhaps mention Davers in my Neo-Terran faction focus. He notes that a Whip 15 hacker or specialist in Pan-Oceania is excellent, it's above the curve, even if Davis are slightly on the expensive side. And Anthony, you have kind of hit the nail on the head with that last comment there. I don't actually think Davis are bad. I like them very much, but they are on the expensive side. In fact, they are very much on the expensive side. And what they did that was unique, which was add in some surprisingly high quality hacking into a Pan-Oceanian faction that otherwise wouldn't really have access to that necessarily, has been overtaken a little bit by some other options that have emerged either because they've been added into the faction or because we've kind of figured out how to use them over the course of N4, and we can see those a little bit in this video. And so to kind of answer the question, as we go through this list, we will see both a hacker and a killer hacker, both of which are at least nominally cheaper than a Deva, but also both of which get to join link teams, which plays a big part in Neoterra's overall force composition. We only have 15 troop slots, and particularly if we are running a standard list, which means usually a 5-person link team, how many independent and mobile pieces you have in a list is going to be limited. How many just models you can fit into a list is going to be limited. And so a Deva, for the points that it costs, doesn't just occupy the points, but it also occupies a troop slot. And when we already have to pay for the links, we have to pay all of the points and all of the troop slots for the links, and those really are kind of like a pretty non-optional element in the faction. Having an unlinkable specialist that you don't really want to move up the field that much, they're only 4/4, they aren't moving as part of a link team's efficiency, there's no tactical awareness. It makes the hacker Davas just kind of an awkward fit, even if on paper they aren't really any more points. Like a KHD Dava, I think, is 1 point more than a KHD Bolt. But a KHD Dava can't be part of a link team, which means it has to displace something else. And it's just, in general, I find Davas are very slightly too difficult to include in a list comfortably. I think if you like them, you can absolutely make them work. It's just that your force composition is going to change a little bit, and especially fitting them into a normal style Neoterran list is a little harder than it's worth. Now, with that said, what have we got in this list? So this is my attempt to build what I would consider to be a competition-style baseline Neo-Terra list. In particular, it is pushing away from what I personally like to play and more what I would consider standard. And that means we have a 5, in this case, 6-person Fusilier link. I like to have lots of mobile and independent elements. I like to have lots of lines of play available to me at any given time. And having a relatively static 5 or 6-person core runs kind of counter to that. That does not mean 5 or 6-person cores are bad. In fact, this one would do very well this game. It's just not how I like to build lists. But it is standard, and it's standard for a reason. And in this case, what we're doing is we're running a Fusilier core. Now, you only get 5 Fusiliers in Neoterra, but you can have a blocker, and blockers can join Fusilier links where they count as a Fusilier. Now, for my money, I'd actually quite happily have taken a Fusilier hacker. All I want is just a model that can make hacking arrows. The cheaper, the better, but I couldn't fit any more Fusiliers, and I needed all of those ones, so a blocker stepped up to the plate. It is 6 points more expensive than a Fusilier hacker, and for those 6 points, you get 1 point of whip, which is relevant, 3 points of BTS, which is relevant. It's absolutely not worth an almost 30% increase, or a more than 30% increase over the cost of the Fusilier, but I don't have a Fusilier. I can only take 5 of them, and I've already taken 5 elsewhere in the list, so a blocker is totally fine. So we have a Fusilier missile launcher and a Fusilier multi-sniper. These are both strong ARO pieces. You have the multi-sniper over 2 missile launchers, firstly for the range bands, but secondly, the multi-sniper rifle can feasibly go into an active turn shooting role, because going up to burst 3 is good enough to take fights in active turn. We then have a paramedic for force reconstitution, a lieutenant, and a lieutenant decoy. Now, I am not tailoring this for the scenario. If I was, I would probably cut that second Fusilier and just have maybe a Fusilier hacker. That would let me cut the blocker, just for example. But because we're playing Decapitation, so it's a reinforced tactical link, there's no need for an LT decoy. But this list is built to be generalist, and so we have a lieutenant and a lieutenant decoy, which is just in Pan-Oceania, particularly if you're playing against Haqqislam, for example, you want that. We then have a three-person link of a Bulletier Spitfire, a Bolt Killer Hacker with Boarding Shotgun and EM Mines, and an FTO Engineer Tactical Awareness Blade. This three-person Harry's team, there are so many ways you can configure this kind of a team, where you have the Bulletier, the Bolt, and the Blade. The Blade is an engineer for the Bulletier. The Bolt will either be, you can have a submachine gun, so a Spitfire Bolt if you want long range, and then you maybe have a Boarding Shotgun Bulletier, or if you want to use hacking, the Spitfire Bulletier is eminently serviceable. And then bolts, despite being whip 12, because their BTS is so high, and because they are veterans, therefore immune to oblivion, they make surprisingly good killer hackers, and there's nothing wrong with a boarding shotgun. So that's the configuration I've gone with in this list, but you can really configure, as long as you have any kind of Bulletier and the Blade FTO, and then one bolt, this is a good Harry's team. You can build this, you could even put the Sniper Bolt in here if you want to. The Sniper Bolt goes super hard and is very, very strong. Just take your pick. We then have an Auxilia Forward Observer. Again, you could run the Auxilia as, depending on the scenario, you could run this as a non-specialist or a specialist. We've sprung for the specialist upgrade for two reasons. Firstly, it's a specialist, and there are some scenarios where you need this, and we want the list to be well-rounded. And secondly, for 1 point over the base Auxilia, in addition to being a specialist, you get a deployable repeater. And I am trying to just splash a little bit of hacking into this list. And having that deployable repeater option will synergize potentially well with the regular hacker and the hacker that I have in the list. In Combat Group 2, we then have an NCO Mark II Squallow with multi-heavy machine gun. Now, in this scenario, I would absolutely have downgraded this to the heavy machine gun grenade launcher, because having Axtus as something like a grenade launcher really is the only thing that's missing from this list. Having an indirect fire and ability to go after things that are cowering behind buildings, etc., is something that is nice to have in any Panoshanian list, but is especially nice to have in Decapitation, because you are trying to kill HVTs that your opponent will often attempt to civ-evac and pull back to their deployment zone, etc. And so having a spec fire would have been very, very good, but the list is designed to be generalist. And in a generalist sense, if you don't know what you're playing against, having options for dealing with big, hard enemy ARO pieces, stuff with armor, tactical armored gears used as ARO pieces, for example, sometimes you need the AP rounds. And if I'm not sure, then I'll take the NCO, fine, and I'll take the multi-HMG. We are doing it, of course, with the second Blade FTO Engineer Tactical Awareness. Two of these are really the only thing that is a true auto-include in Neoterra. They are just incredible as fireteam options, as engineers, as tactical awareness, etc. We then have an Auxilia Forward Observer and two Fugazi drone bots. So, a few things about this list. Tons of guns, although its ability to fight in active turn, there really are only 3 guns that are notable. The multi-sniper, we will take fights with the missile launcher in this game, don't worry, but the multi-sniper, the Bulletier, which has no support wear, but still, and then the Squallow. But it nevertheless has a lot going on, and it has an absolute ton of orders. This is functionally a 19-order list with a lot of flexibility in how you use those orders. Basically, the only way to run dry is to have the link teams, the duo in particular, the duo and the Haris. If both of those get taken down, you're done. You're out of the game, because those are your primary active elements. But they are incredibly mobile because they have so many orders and they can do so many things. And importantly, this is one of the things that can make Panoshanian Firepower work. They are bad luck resistant, because there is an engineer, all you need your command tokens for. You're not using them for O12 Prestige. You have way too much tack aware for that. All you need your command tokens for is to repair things, and that's basically it. Maybe reform links, maybe, but mostly you're just re-rolling repair rolls, and that lets you take fights with the Bulletier and the Squallow and just keep taking them until you win. You have enough orders, you have enough engineers, you just keep taking fights against hard ARO pieces until those pieces are dead, and you repair through any damage. It is ultimately a very simple list, but it can play in probably any scenario, just about. It has tons of specialists, it has an absolute ton of orders. This is what I would call basically a very strong starting baseline for Neoterran Capitaline Army. It's not skewing in any particular direction, it's not trying anything particularly clever, it's just doing a lot of actions with very solid quality pieces and lots of specialists. It is just good. Playing into it, we have one of my regular opponents, Kyle, playing one of his regular lists. This is his Haqqislam list that he basically plays whenever he needs some comfort food. This list is very, very comfort food, and Kyle's had a lot going on at work recently, and so this is basically, he just wants to play something that he knows is fun and good, and this list is fun and good. It's been on the channel before, but to run through it very briefly, it's a Saladin and Irregulars and Hackers. It's a pile of Haqqislam good stuff, and it's all good. So we've got Saladin as the Lieutenant, and Azrael with AP HMG, a Mukta and Yara Haddad. So we have 3 quite serviceable firepower pieces, obviously declining in quality. Once you get to Yara, she's a little scuffed in terms of being a really good active gun, but if you have smoke that goes down, she can fight things, and she's only 25 points and 0 SWC, the list can afford her. We then have Zuleika. Look, I mispronounce a lot of things. I'm going to continue to do so. I am Australian. We come from a place that has a mountain called Mount Kosciuszko, and the Poles in the room can tell me how badly I mangled that. It's not my fault. It's just how we are. I'm going to mispronounce it. Zuleika? I don't care. The biker, one of the good bikers. We then have a guided missile remote, Asawira Doctor with Nazmat, a Bereed hacker, and a Bereed killer hacker. So just the one regular hacker in this list, but you've got the guided missile remote. Bereeds are incredible. I'm well outspoken on those, etc. Excellent package. In Combat Group 2, and remember this is a 9-6 split, but it's got Saladin, so you can easily rearrange these. 9-6 leaves that space open. Hassassin for Day with DACCW, Coom Rider with Light Shotgun, Libertos Mine Layer, 2 Dalamis, and a Fanus remote. Just a good light package. Lots of irregulars there, but we can use Saladin's 5 command tokens to mix match, spend orders, like turn irregular orders regular, etc. Just a good, well-rounded Haqqislam list, and I would note it's pretty damn good in Decapitation. In addition to having a nice mix of smoke and fast pieces and infiltrators to reach out and touch enemy HVTs, it's got a assassin for day, potentially to go after lieutenants, and this is an edge that I hadn't even really particularly thought about, it has a very good doctor, which can, and in this case will, come up in Decapitation. So, lists introduced, let's get into the game. So Kyle has won the role and has elected to go first, which is really kind of a no-brainer in Decapitation. It's a very first-turn focused mission. 2 reasons why. Firstly, 16-inch deployment zones. Secondly, there's no end-of-game scoring. Yes, there's a very slight line of play that you can follow if you are going second, where if you're good at counting points, you can make some fairly informed decisions about how aggressive you can or can't be with regards to the army point kill victory condition, but that is a consolation price at best. Otherwise, in this game, what you're trying to do is kill more enemy lieutenants, which are public information and don't inflict loss of lieutenant, kill more HVTs, of which there are 2. They have the usual HVT active profile, so a ballistic skill 6 combi stun pistol, they dodge on 11s that basically have nothing else going for them, and kill more army points. So 3 points for more army points, 3 points for more lieutenants, and 2 points for each civilian that you kill. Now, in terms of the table, something that is worth noting. One of the things that I am trying to incorporate in tables just a little bit more, not universally, but where I can, is interior spaces that are considered, that you can move into and out of, but which are considered sealed for the purposes of guided missile and speculative fire. And so we have that here. So this building and the space behind it is considered a sealed space, which means that guided missiles and speculative fire cannot be fired out of or into the space. You can move into it, you can move out of it, you can move through the doors, you can shoot normally. It is just a rule that is specifically designed to constrain guided missile play just a little bit, to add a little bit of deployment space. I don't think it's necessarily obligatory in every table, but I think it is a nice thing to have. Particularly if you've got a piece of terrain that it makes sense that it would work that way, just rule that it is sealed. You don't have to then futz around with things like opening and closing doors, like, oh, these are Star Trek doors or something. It just cleanly cut to the chase. We're just going to play this as a building. The doors are open. I'm not going to go and get the little doors for it and put them in and then remove them when we move through it, but it's sealed. No missiles in and out. And that's going to be relevant this game. It's obviously difficult to show how something that prevents an attack prevented an attack, because Kyle won't attempt to throw guided missiles into that space, but it's just a little layer of comfort that allows let me deploy my Fusilier hacker down here, knowing that if he gets killed, it's going to be because of Bob from accounting and not because a Bereed hacker shot a pitcher, missiled him, and killed him. Something that I recommend if you find that guided missiles are something that are coming up a lot locally and you'd like to see them just a little bit less, or at least to offer some counterplay, consider that as part of your table mix. Tables will always influence what is strong and what isn't. If you play with open tables, if you play with very dense tables, etc., that will change what is strong. And if you add sealed elements into your terrain mix, it will just marginally shift the needle on how powerful guided missiles without needing to do anything in terms of like house rules or anything like that. And this is an example of how you can use it. Anyway, Kyle has won the lieutenant role, unsurprisingly, with whip 16 versus my whip 12, and he has deployed first on the right side of the table. So in terms of what we've got that we're dealing with in terms of the deployment, we have an Azrael up here prone on this building with a Dalami Panzerfaust next to him and a little helper bot down behind that. The helper bot is connected to the Asawira, which is on this rooftop over here. Saladin is nooked down underneath this stairway where he'll be very, very difficult to get to. Zuleika is deployed over here. She's actually going to be a reserve, but she'll deploy relatively conservatively without a strong intention to do much in the early part of the game. We have on this rooftop the guided missile remote. The Fanu spot, I believe, is hanging out, yep, over here. The other Coom Rider is in this spot here, deployed non-impetuous, both bikers are. We have a Buried Killer Hacker behind this sign here, and a Buried Hacker on this rooftop there. And then the last Delamy is on, you can't quite see it in frame, but there's a tower up here, and on that tower's rooftop is a standing Delamy with Panzerfaust. The last model that is going to drop is going to be his second reserve, Zuleika is the first, and that is going to be the Hassassinfidei, which will deploy there, which we will get to. For my part, I reserve drop an Auxilia because it's a model, an Auxilia is 2 models, and having 2 models opens up certain counterplays against pieces like Hassassinfidei, so it's my reserve drop. In normal circumstances, it might be the Squallow, or it might be something else. Otherwise, from bottom to top, we have the Fusilier Hacker hanging out in this corner of the building here, in this sealed space, so it's going to be safe. We then have the Bolt Blade Bulleteer fire team. The Bulleteer here, potentially a serviceable ARO piece against things that are really hitting all the way into the DZ. Otherwise, we have the Blade in this corner and the Bolt that is going to throw me up really badly, and the Bolt further back. The reason why the Bolt is the 2 that is further back is that I don't want pitches to be able to drop onto it. If a hacker comes at me, I want it to have to really push the pitcher shot from the Buried as far in as possible, which just exposes it to more of a counterattack. Then on this rooftop and behind this pair of conjoined buildings, we have the Fusilier team. And so I've managed to sort of stack the 2 big guns. So we've got the missile launcher here further back and the sniper further forward. And the idea with their positioning is that if any of the 2 Delamies, or if the Azrael, particularly if the Azrael stands up, it will take AROs from both of them in a way that is going to be difficult to split or disrupt using smoke. Now, this does have the downside that if I activate the Link team, then the Delamies could potentially take unopposed AROs into whichever firepower piece isn't active. I am kind of willing to live with that. We have the Paramedic elsewhere here on the rooftop, and then hanging out down behind the building is the Blocker Hacker and the other Fusilier. Now, they're all set up in a way where it is going to be basically impossible for a shotgun to hit multiple of them at a time. That's part of how you want to defend against Hassassinfideis. There is actually, you can't see it, but there's actually a little sign, like there's one of these, you can see this one here, these little low-level signs. Those are still tall enough that if you put a prone model behind it, it will usually interrupt a shotgun template. Back here, we have the Squallos duoed with its Blade, again also just sitting with some ARO positions. It's watching in this direction. Mostly it's trying to protect my HVTs, because my HVTs are both squirreled away here. They are split across levels. So one of them is on this high ground. It's just part of the table, but with this high ground platform here, and so it's just in this position here, behind this on the side we're facing. You can probably just about see it, and then behind it on ground level is the other HVT. And so to protect those HVTs, we have the Squallos watching them. Then we have an Auxilia here with its Oxbot watching the in flamethrower space, and then there's a Fugazi Dronbot on ground level behind that sign, just prone, presenting its repeater area. And this list actually has quite good repeater coverage. We've got the Bulleteer here, we've got a Fugazi Dronbot prone here, and then a Fugazi Dronbot prone here. And that really, there's not a lot in Kyle's list that is super hackable, but against something that does, that really presents basically all of this space as viable repeater area, which would do something like hold off. If I was running a tactical armored gear, for example, I would be pretty unwilling to push it in through that network because the risk is really just not worth the reward. So Kyle goes first, and deciding that sort of how his turn is going to play out, he actually shunts Zuleika into the first combat group. I spend a command token to take 1 order from each of his groups. I'm actually a little scared of how much damage the Irregulars could do, and I want to force him to spend command tokens on his Libertos and Delamy group if, for example, he goes after my HVTs, and that is indeed what he does. So there are a few lines of play that take place. Oh, in case I didn't mention this, this is an Auxilia that has deployed to counter the Fidei deployment. So there are a few lines of play that Kyle is going to pursue in the first turn, and I'll kind of follow them one at a time. Firstly, we have the Hassassinfidei. Now, it is deployed here in an attempt to break open the Link team. It's actually been a little bit greedy. It's deployed here hoping that it can throw some smoke and then move around and start shanking people behind this building, and it's been counter-deployed by the Fugazi Dronbot. Okay, that's fine. It's not even in the worst position, because what it's going to do is it's going to reveal itself, and it's going to place a template down over the Auxilia and the Fusilier missile launcher. Now, the Fusilier will dodge, the Auxilia will shoot, and the flamethrower will shoot. The Auxilla's combi rifle hits, but the Fugazi tanks both the heavy flamethrower and the combi rifle, which is a big rip. However, in good news, the missile launcher dodges, and because the Auxilla is within 8 inches of the Bulletier is able to turn around using warning or alert to face the Hassus Infidei. Hassus Infidei is like, all right, fine, whatever, and it walks into CC with the Auxilla because it can't. It's only put the Oxbot unconscious, so it cannot actually like leave the position that it's in unless it kills someone. It has to actually make a gap to move through, because you stop when you contact even unconscious troopers, then you can walk out of CC with them, but it's blocked in at the moment effectively. And although it will kill the Auxilla, or knock it unconscious rather, shots from the Bulletier will put it down, leaving basically this entire situation a bit of a bloody mess. But I will happily trade a 15-point Auxilla for 2 orders and a 26-point Hassus Infidei. The rest of Kyle's turn is basically going hell for leather on the 2 HVTs I have up here, and there are multiple lines that he was able to pursue here. The first is that the Delamy up on that tower's rooftop just walks down the stairs and starts blasting, but I have Overwatch over it. There is a missile launcher, a sniper rifle, and at one point the Squalos with the multi-HMG and the flamethrower, and the Delamy is able to make a run, but it's ultimately the flamethrower that puts it down when it goes after the HVT, and the HVT survives. Now I get quite lucky there. I think I crit a dodge against a shotgun crit, but the HVT makes it through at least the turn for now. So Kyle then falls back on, okay, cool, that was the only model that was really able to easily reach those pieces. Any other movement through this space, there's potentially ARO elements, could be smoke. We're going to go and do a guided missile play. Now, guided missiles are very good in this scenario for this reason, but guided missiles are not, they are not an attack element that is without downsides. They are very, very low risk, but they can be kind of low reward and high variance. And so what we do, Kyle is going to move the Coom Raider just around to here to be able to get onto the stairs, to get enough height to throw some smoke, just to enable the Fugazi drone bot just to scuttle up. It actually just makes a jump, gets up here, and it catches this HVT in zone of control. I go for a dodge, but I don't make it and I don't get clear. Kyle then spends, I want to say, 6 more orders spotlighting and killing the HVT. And he does do it. It takes a spotlight, then a spotlight. So it's the spotlight, 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 spotlight succeeds, and then the missile kills me on the first go. But that takes basically his entire turn. There's just a little bit of, in terms of the order pool left. And that is the kind of thing that happens with guided missiles. Guided missiles enable you to break a deadlock, but it is very, very possible that they just use your entire turn, and they can fail as well. The risk that people seem to always miss with guided missiles is that they can fail. It's just that you make an investment in orders rather than you take a risk for your troops. And if that doesn't pay off, you kind of fizzled away the turn. But you've lost nothing, which is why they're appealing for many people as a tactic. Now, he does get the kill in this case, and that puts him 2 points up for killing a HVT. And with just a few orders left in the pool, he goes for the same play again. In this case, the Barid is going to move up to here. It's going to throw a pitcher down, and it will hit the pitcher. It'll land it sort of back here. That will catch the second of the 2 HVTs, and then the Barid will scoot back down, making hacking attacks as it goes. And it is able to get spotlight onto the. It's able to get spotlight onto the HVT with just 1 order left to fire the missile, and in this instance I crit the dodge again. This is a relatively lucky HVT, and so the HVT is alive, but it is spotlit. And I can't activate the HVT to reset Spotlight. I can't even synchronize it and perform a reset because the synchronized civilian skill no longer works that way. And so I actually opine out loud that it's like, I don't think there's a way for me to get that Spotlight off. I think that model is dead. And Carl's like, oh, can you engineer it? I'm like, can I engineer it? Yes, you can engineer in the same way that you can doctor HVTs and technically even enemy troops. You can engineer HVTs. It comes up very, very rarely, but it came up this game. Now, this is going to be a turn where I have many orders, but I am forced to spend them somewhat liberally to accomplish a relatively limited selection of objectives. Nevertheless, if we look at how that last turn went, Kyle got a kill on a HVT, he got a kill on an Auxilla, but he has lost more than I have. He's lost a Delamy and a Hassus Infidei. I'm currently trading pretty comfortably up, and I want to continue that trend. Let him break upon us like water on rock. And so the first thing we're going to do is just try and clear a couple of paths. So we're actually going to activate the fire team, but we are going to activate the missile launcher instead. There is only one Delamy that is watching us at this point. It can take an unopposed shot, but I eyeball, in fact, Kyle eyeballs, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize you'd stuffed that up. And he's like, yeah, I think I have. This Delamy is a bit too close to the Azrael, which means that if I hit the Delamy with a missile, it will hit the Azrael as well. So we workshop through this because he can't really move the Azrael away, like even if he deployed it differently. And so what we do is I'm going to take the Discover Shoot, and he actually does nothing. He does nothing with either of them. When the missile actually is able to be launched, the Azrael will be entitled to a dodge, which it will take. But the Delamy does nothing. It doesn't even choose to take a free shot because I've only got, it's like a 60% chance or thereabouts to succeed the Discover roll because these are just Fusiliers. And overwhelmingly, his best case scenario is that I just fail the Discover roll. If he reveals himself, the Discover roll is moot, and I will fire those missiles, and I will splash the Azrael. So he just does nothing because it has the highest overall potential outcome. Now, unfortunately, I make the Discover roll. I fire 2 missiles. One of them hit. It splashes the Delamy, but it only wounds the Azrael. It's not armor piercing, right? Because I have to fire the template mode to hit the Azrael. The Azrael is armor 5, so it just takes 1 wound, and the Delamy goes all the way to dead. I'm happy with that outcome, and of course, Kyle breathes a sigh of relief because the Azrael is not down. Next up, moving up through the center, it's the Bolt team time. We've only used one. We lost the Auxilia in Combat Group 1, but we still have tactical awareness and blah, blah, blah. So this team is going to move up and through, and this is the Bulletier going to be doing most of the work. It's going to move up and around to here, and it's going to fire and destroy. It's going to knock unconscious, but that's effectively destroyed the Fugazi. It will knock this HVT unconscious, and then we will push around to here, where the other HVT is, and we will put it all the way to dead. Now we have a few orders left, so we'll move a little bit further. In particular, moving the Bulletier just up to here and leaving the other models, the Bolt KHD and the Blade, just hunkered back. And that puts the Bulletier, we'll actually push the Bulletier slightly further forward because there is a Bereaved Killer Hacker back here. And after 2 face-to-face rolls, thanks to the advantage of Firewall, that Bolt KHD will actually take down and destroy the otherwise vastly superior Bereaved Killer Hacker. Yes, the Breed has upgrade -3, but I have Firewall bonuses, I have plenty of BTS. And I have burst advantage, so despite my abysmal whip after 2 face-to-face rolls, the Bolt gets it done and puts the Bereaved all the way to no. It puts it to unconscious, but it won't be recovered over the course of this game. We then use just a couple of orders that we have remaining, because we have many orders in this group, on the core link, specifically activating the blocker and attempting to split burst Oblivion between the Azrael and the little helper bot back here, but it doesn't go the distance. I don't succeed. My whip is low. It is what it is, and we pass. That's the end of this group's actions. However, we still have 8 orders. We have 8 orders to spend on the tag and the blade, so we get to work with them. They're going to move up and around this way, and they're going to accomplish a couple of objectives. The first is that they're going to destroy the repeater that has been placed down. The next is that we are going to get the blade up into base contact with my the HVT, and then I'm going to have a Pano willpower moment, and it will take like 3 orders to remove Spotlight. Now, there is a misplay that I think I made in executing this, and that was choosing to keep these guys linked. I didn't need to. The important thing to note is that Civivac is a short movement skill. So I could have been declaring Civivac and Engineer, and then having Civivac, I could start moving backwards and be declaring Move and Engineer. And if I had done that, it would have taken the same 3 orders to recover the damn HVT from its spotlighted position. But I would have been able to move 8 inches back this way and then have a last remaining order to pull further back. And if I had done that, then the HVT has a very, very good chance of surviving the game. But I didn't. I partially didn't think of it until I was halfway through activating the blade. And then secondly, I just chose to keep the link team joined. But that is something that I should potentially have considered doing, and which Kyle would consider doing next turn. So we pass into Kyle's turn 2, and we can see the bloody mess that is left of the Assassin for Days attack run over here. The fire team of the Bolt has pushed up in this direction, and then we've got some unconscious models around about. Kyle needs to continue to push on and score objectives, and he's going to start doing that by making a big play for the HVT. Well, no, the first thing he will do is that the Libertos will activate. This is the Libertos here. It will stand up. It's going to get absolutely cleaned up. It actually has to take 11 saves in a row from the various things that are shooting it, which, spoiler alert, it does not survive. But it does it puts 2 wounds into the Bulletier, knocking it into unconscious level 2. Very happily, the Bolt Hacker dodges. Now, the rest of this turn is basically all Asawira. It's going to hop down here, move around here, and get into base contact with the Kyle's downed HVT. And then he will, as one order, Civivac Civilian and Doctor. Now, Strictly speaking, I'm not 100% sure that you can declare CBMAC on an unconscious civilian, but I also don't see why you wouldn't be able to. I'll have to look that up for the fact. In either case, it's all down to whether or not he survives, he manages to heal the civilian. But an Asawira has very good whip and is an outstanding doctor, and he easily passes both of those roles. He then just gets the Asawira and whoops all the way back and around to here. So not only has he recovered the civilian that I put down but didn't kill, he's also put it in a position where I am probably not going to be able to get to it. That is, however, pretty much the bulk of his turn. Otherwise, he just moves this Coom Rider around to here, which next turn will let him potentially make an attack run on my HVT. But that's it. He's basically at that point, he's used most of his orders, and he doesn't want to throw too much more into the breach. There's not much he can meaningfully do, particularly with the Libertos down. The independent elements are beginning to run out. So we pass over to my turn. Now, we are once again blessed with an absolute plethora of orders, which we're going to use for a combination of force reconstitution and offense. Not necessarily order-efficient offense, but I don't have grenade launchers, and there's only so much that I can do, and he is dug in like a tick. So, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to use a paramedic to recover this auxiliary, just to have an order and a model for the next turn. We are going to use the blade ops to recover this bulleteer, but we're going to then leave it there because it's actually more useful to me as a repeater. And we're going to push this team all the way up and around here, up onto this building. And the bolt is going to put 2 shotgun templates into this guided missile remote and kill the damn thing. Now, he needs to roll a 6 to hit me an ARO, and he does, and he kills the bolt, and I'm a sad boy. But it is worth it to put that guided missile down because there are repeaters here again. He's done that during his turn. He's reestablished the repeater network. I can't realistically I can't save the HVT a second time through that. So we just kill the damn guided missile launcher so that the rain of fire ends. Otherwise, we're going to push up and around here again. We're going to use the blade to put down the repeater this time because we can't safely do it with the Squalos. But I get Spotlight and it doesn't matter because the missile launcher is dead. We'll then push the Squalos around. It's going to have to go through a QAZ zone, but it is my tactical ops, whatever it's called, so it has terrain total. And it puts down the Coom Rider, and then we'll pull back and around to here, and we just kind of end up in this position, being annoying. I'm just looking to push him back at this juncture. Now, that's pretty much the entirety of my turn. There's not really much more I can do. Even with the order count that I have, this run is very, very long, and then there's a lot of back and forth with the Squalos. I get a few kills, but basically I'm staging to make an attack run in the final turn. At the moment, I am up on army points, but down on HVTs, which is not the worst place to be, but what I don't want to do is like throw things away whole as bolus, because if I go behind, and particularly if I lose multiple of the pieces, like I just lost the bolt this turn, if I begin to lose the pieces I have that have teeth, for example, if the score loss goes down in some capacity, things can get very difficult. So Kyle begins his final turn, and with relatively few resources left. Oh, also I managed to hack. I managed to immobilize the Azrael. Panashianian hacking, baby! So Kyle makes the play that the plan is to kill the HVT, kill the last HVT. And Yara Haddad has been hanging out here the entire game, and she's able to do it. It's a little awkward. She's got to sort of like schmutz around here, staying away from the Squalos, then up this ladder, and then prone over, and then around this way, and then eventually she's going to take 10 saves from the Overwatch team, but she will stand up, put 3 shots into the HVT, and put it down. Now that is almost the entirety of what Kyle can accomplish this turn because he is down a lot of troops, and he basically just builds a bunker around Saladin and the last remaining HVT, hoping to hold off like the attacks that are coming and settle with the points that he has. Both HVT kills. He hasn't gotten the lieutenant kill, and I think there's a pretty good argument that he should probably have gone for it on the first turn because it could have made a very big difference right now. Still, it is a reasonable defensive position. He can keep the game relatively close, and I am going to have to push into it. And I'm just stopping and I'm like, okay, so there's a breed hacker left. Most of my remaining elements I can attack with are hackable. My killer hacker is dead. Is there a repeater in this area? Yes, Saladin is a repeater. God damn it. And that pretty much closes off either of these close attacks. Like if I want to just push in and around, anything I do that with is going to get hacked absolutely to hell, particularly given Saladin and the Asawira are both in suppressive fire. So we're going to take this a couple of ways, but most of our attacks we're going to spend just a whole ton of orders moving pieces around here and attacking from this direction. Is that a really long way around? Yes. Is it the only way to do it without getting hacked? Yes. Am I willing to let the Squalos get hacked? No. Possession is a null state. So we're going to go in with the blade first, but it gets shot down by the Asawira. Okay, not the end of the world. Then we're going to go in with the tag, and it's going to come all the way around here. So it's going to come up onto this rooftop, and it's going to take the shot, and it's actually going to put the Asawira down, but that will take 100% of its orders. Putting the Asawira down, however, opens up the Bulleteer to come around this way, and at this point, I realize that this gap is just slightly too small for the Bulleteer to squeeze through, which means I have to come out and around this way, which means I have to walk through the hacking area, which means this is probably a one-way trip, but I'm able to move. I have so many orders, able to move, and then we come in and through, and we just make a run on the HVT. And yep, Saladin puts the Bulleteer down, but the Bulleteer puts the HVT down, and we just tap the game out there because I have nothing that can go after Saladin. That ends the game something like 7-4. No one has scored any lieutenant kills. I have killed both HVTs. Carl has killed both HVTs, and I have more army points remaining. Had the Hassassin Fidei gone after this Fusilier on the first turn, then the score would be 7-all, because they're basically, I'd have to have rolled the dice on maybe trying to kill Saladin, which is not a good shout. But yeah, so there we go. That is. I mean, I'm not surprised by a close game, and with one small change in the line of play, the fact that that could have been a draw is not particularly surprising either. Haqqislam is generally good in this scenario. Kyle plays his Haqqislam well, and when you build a Neo-Terra list that is designed to be sort of like very generic, to play in this sort of like safe and comfortable way, it's good. Like, I had so many orders, and I won like so many gunfights. But you do still have to translate that into actual scenario points, and it only directly translates into scenario points via army kills in this scenario. Like, that's 3 of your available points. You have to work for the rest, and if you don't win the lieutenant role, which you're not always likely to do, that can be challenging. So overall, look, the list obviously performed quite well. I had to throw away a few models at the end of the game, but I went into the last turn with 14 of my 15 troops alive, which is like, that's a that's a pretty good outcome. Like, there were a lot of cases where, like, if this had been acquisition or something, that's just a nice clean win. Like, that's super clean. So Kyle took a lot of scenario-oriented plays trying to kill HVTs, and he lost models for it. Hassassin Fidei could have been deployed maybe a little bit better, or probably more aggressively, I think, after the LT. But overall, very fun and enjoyable list to play. Anthony P, hope you enjoyed this battle report. Hope you enjoyed this list discussion, including the discussion of Davas and why I like them, but I don't take them particularly often. As always, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below, or by becoming a channel member, thanks to everyone who does so far. I take requests for battle reports and faction-focused videos and similar from both channel members and channel supporters on Buy Me a Coffee. Again, big thanks to everyone. Coming up next week, I'm hoping to have another faction-focused videos, aiming to put those out at about a rate of 1 per week. We'll see how long I'm able to maintain that for. Basically, as always, this is a hobby for me, but I do try and put things out that people enjoy. The most recent video, in fact, the 2 most recent videos, have prompted plenty of engagement, but mixed reactions, in particular the Invincible Army video, which I kind of knew it would, but it was a request, and I did my best with it. I hope people enjoyed them, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will see you next time.